Welcome to the ranch house at Heritage Park. Today we're going to make some cinnamon buns. This recipe comes from our Heritage Park cookbook, and it's a historical recipe. So the first thing we have to do is put in some butter. So we're going to add 1/2 cup of butter, and we have to cut that in with our 2 cups of flour, which is in the recipe it says a pint. Well, a pint of flour is 2 cups of flour. So we're going to put in 1. The old days, the recipes, when they referred to a cup, it was a teacup that they were talking about. So today we use professionally made cups. So right now I'm going to cut the butter into the flour. This is a pastry cutter. And until we get the butter in the flour to a crumbly state. The softer your butter, the easier it is. But you don't want it melted to do this, you just want it soft. Now, as we've got the butter cut into the flour, the next thing we have to add is a 1/2 teaspoon of salt. So I have my teaspoons here, and I'll take the 1/2 teaspoon of salt, and we cut that in as well. The next thing is 4 teaspoons of baking powder. Baking powder will make these cinnamon buns puff up. So it's called for 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. So continue cutting those in. The next thing we add is the milk. Now the recipe says 1 cup scant. And what they mean by scant is it's not quite a full cup. So you can start with your cup, and as you put it in and mix it in, just check you want it dough consistency so that you can roll it out quite easily. So we'll take our milk and we'll just start adding the milk until we have a good dough. Mix this all in. Now I'm going to put this dough onto a piece of parchment to roll it out. The recipe tells you to put it on the tin baking sheet, but I prefer to put it on the parchment first, which allows more space for rolling. Now, before we roll it, we're just going to knead it a little bit. It doesn't really need kneading, and this recipe doesn't need yeast. We don't need to have this with the yeast to make it puff up. It also has to have a hot oven to bake these. Now, in the old days, women always knew what those terms meant. Hot oven, moderate oven. We have converted that, and a hot oven today is 400 degrees. So if you're cooking at home, you want to heat your oven to 400 degrees. Moderate oven is 350 degrees. Women got to know their oven. They cooked on them enough so that they knew how hot. Just by putting their hand into the oven, you could tell. There were other ways. You could put in a piece of parchment, and if it turned brown and curled, then you knew you had a hot oven. Okay, now I'm going to roll this out. You don't want it too thin, but you want it spread out enough that when we put our butter and our sugar and our cinnamon on it, it's going to allow us a lot of space to roll it. Now we want to spread this butter, and I like to use real butter. That's what it calls for. So why not use what it calls for? And we'll put the sugar on. And don't skimp. This is a sweet treat. So we're just gonna put it on like this, and then we'll smooth it out. That's better. There we go. Now, take a little bit of cinnamon here. And we'll sprinkle that cinnamon all over. What we're going to do now is roll the pastry. Just as if you were doing a jelly roll. There we go. Okay. Let's just turn the ends in. Alrighty. So now we're just going to cut these. Yeah, we'll cut them in. Now I'm just going to take them off this piece of parchment and turn them on their side onto the baking sheet. Now we've got our cinnamon buns and we've got our hot oven. I'm going to pop these into the oven for 20 minutes. There we go. So that's a very simple recipe for cinnamon buns. Not a lot of ingredients, fast and easy to make, fun with the kids to make, and there you go. Oh my goodness, look at that. Perfect little cinnamon buns. Now you can make an icing for this, plain white icing, and drizzle it over them, or if you like them that way, or just eat them like this, maybe add a little butter to them, and they're quite tasty.